Welcome to Let's Paint Minis. I'm Dan, and today we're painting Jakob Knochengard from the Reaper Bones series. I picked this up in their 4th Kickstarter, and it's one of the cool minis in the big old box that I got. I did a zenithal highlight on this a little while ago, and I found a few more mold lines, so that's why it looks a little bit messy, but I'm going to go ahead and paint on top of what I have here. I like to start with doing a base coat over the whole miniature, that way I can get an idea of if all of the colours work together, and it really helps me learn the miniature. By that I mean understanding where all the straps go. It sounds silly, but sometimes you realise close to the end of the miniature, oh wait, that strap actually goes to this and should be this colour, or something like that. And that can be quite frustrating. I'm using a dark brown here, just going over all of what at this point I think is the cloak. I do realise some mistakes later on, as you'll see, but you can see how I'm laying down the paint. I use a lighter, creamier brown to go over the hat, the satchel and the gun wraps. Having a nice gradient of light at the top and dark at the bottom can really help push the idea of the light hitting it, as well as making the miniature seem somehow taller or have a bit more depth to him. So I've mixed together a very dark brown to go at the bottom here. And keeping it a little bit easier, I'm using the lead belcher for most of the metallics. Now I've taken a simple photo and I've moved this into Photoshop. I've quickly masked some of the areas. It's not a clean job here, but I just wanted to move some of the colours around and get an idea of an end result, because it doesn't look quite right at the moment. I realised I was painting something as if it was a separate sash, but actually it's just part of the cloak, so I need to correct that. As I've mentioned before, colour theory seems to be one of the many weaknesses of mine, so this has actually been a really helpful step. It's the first time I've done it, but probably won't be the last. And now we're back and correcting any of those mistakes that we found in that colour sketching process. I'm using Mephiston Red to cover up all of the tunic or undergarment that he is wearing that we can see through the cloak. And I'm using Mornfang Brown on all of the leathers that aren't part of the cloak, or leather-like material at least, so the hat, the sheath of the sword, and any straps that I can see around the potions and various things. I'm going to use washes for the shading of the miniature, and I'm using inks for the first time here. I got a set of Liquitex inks. I know that they're very saturated, so I'm going to mix these down with glaze medium and water. And it looks like these inks would make a great glaze, so I'll give that a go later as well. I've used a burnt umber and black to go across basically all of the cloak and any brown areas. I also have mixed together a dark red to go over the reds. That's given us a nice depth to the miniature already, but I want to push that a bit further, so I'm doing some black lining in any of the deep recesses, and I'm using a black ink to do that. It's very wet, so it flows really well, and it's heavily saturated, so you still get a nice black line from it. Initial highlights are a bit easier in terms of colours because we could just go over them with the same base coats that we used in the first place. The washes have darkened all of the colour, so this is a nice easy step. To the reds, I didn't want to add too much white because you end up getting a pink colour, and I didn't know that that would be suitable, so I'm adding some bright orange to keep some colour in the highlights. I spend a bit more time on the cloak as that's a very large area across this miniature. I do lots of layers, slowly adding in more Mournfang brown as I go. Towards the end I added a bit of white to it as well to really push the very ends or tips of the highlights. I do all of these highlights on the cloak using a glazing technique. Now it's time to paint the head that this person is kindly carrying around for them. I'm glazing over with a flesh colour to see how that looks in the end. I'm hoping with the undertones of greens and blues that it's going to have a nice undead look to it. I'm highlighting across the forehead, the brow, the nose, the cheekbones are very prominent on this miniature because it's almost skull-like, but I'm mostly leaving the underside untouched to keep the depth. And this is the end result I got, which I'm pretty happy with. It's a dirtier finish than I wanted, but it's hard to get an overall idea of the miniature when you have this stark, unpainted, untouched base at the bottom, so it's time to do some basing. I'm gluing this mini down onto a 25mm round base, and then I'm going to add some clay, dirt, and some grass and things on top. I'm using Das clay, which is an air drying clay. To sculpt it, it really helps to use some water. You can use your fingers and all sorts of different tools. It's a very easy material to work with. I let that dry overnight, and then I gave a base coat of a very dark brown, as we won't see much of this. This is going to go under our dirt. I slap on some acrylic earth. This will dry cracked, so we'll see the dark brown underneath it. You want to put it on so you have different depths of this over the base so that it dries a bit more random and a bit more natural looking. And then I'm sticking on some grass terrain that I have, some dried roots, and anything that I can find dried that's a suitable size in my garden or plant pots. And this is the end result that I've managed to accomplish. I'm pretty happy with it. Now it's time to take some photos and show your friends. Thank you all for coming along. Thank you for watching. It would be great if you can do any of those things that YouTubers hassle you to do all the time. Thanks again for watching. Hopefully see you on the next one.